Hello and welcome to the Car Podcast with Chris Harris and his little friends. I'm a bit rushed because I've run through the door and I've had to apologise profusely to my friends because I'm later than I thought I would be. But we'll get on with it now. And the opening point on the agenda is one that is quite pertinent to my last few weeks. Tyre pressure monitors. I particularly mean those things in your car, the electronic ones. Yes or no? Neil Clifford.
I say no.
Ooh!
I don't fucking like them.
Why do you not fucking like them?
Because they cause drama when it's not required. You get this urgent warning, your dash all goes red, and you realise that the PSI has dropped from 32 to 30. I mean, who gives a shit? You should be able to set them that if there's rapid decline, i.e. puncture, fair enough, helpful. Or PSI is halved. Below 20, you should be able to set a parameter that you give a shit about. I don't give a shit if it's 28, 29, 27, 34, 47. But it's too much information. It's too much drama, and we should all chill out. So no.
Here's a question for Neil. Is it a bit like car alarms? We've become so irritated by them that when they come on, we just ignore them.
No, but I because it's a warning on the dash, I can't drive with warnings on the dash. You know, I've got friends that are happily. Oh well, I've got a coolant warning, but I popped into my local garage and he said, no, it's fine. It's just the sensor's broken. So I just fucking drive along with the. You can't do that.
You can't do that. That is off. No one in this podcast would do that.
Those are for people that wear their underpants inside out and don't care. You know, if you've got a dash warning, you deal with it. And that's the problem with pumping up your tyres, because you think, oh my God, I've got a puncture. My day is going to be ruined. And then you've got these different types of PSI, because the Porsche one says 0.5 or 0.2 down, because it's not PSI, it's the other one, which I don't know what that is. Bar. And then you're like, what the fuck does that mean? Does it mean I've got a puncture, or is it 1% difference? It's just annoying. It's too German.
Well, you're so negative, Neil.
I'm tired and I want to go to bed, and I don't like tyre warning things.
We've kept him up. It's late, by the way. Neil's got to fly in the morning, so we've not crossed over this week. Manish, your thoughts on tyre pressure monitors from Belsize Park on 400 miles a year?
No, I mean, you and I share an anecdote on this. When we were filming last year, the young Ed Ostella used to drive us to Uncle Luca's every morning from our apartment. And do you remember he had a Chrysler Jeep or something, didn't he?
He had a Chrysler, whatever it is, that's based on a Fiat 500. That was the vehicle.
So it had tyre pressure sensors on it. And every morning he'd drive us and going, ooh, hold on, this has lost about 5 psi, 8 psi, 10 psi. And we worked out there was a slow puncture. And poor guy, he would basically drive us to Lucas and have to go and find a garage, pump the thing up again to drive us back, then go and find the garage. Yes. So it was actually, the one time when we've had this, it's actually been pretty useful. And I was thinking, you want to play a little bit of a counterfactual game. What would you have done had he not had that? What would have happened was he probably would have worked out by driving it, just by feel. Hold on a minute, something doesn't feel right here. When he got out of the car, saw, ooh, I've got a bit of a slow puncture. And so what I'll do is, fill it up once, then realize it's gone down again, and maybe just get the tire repaired or replaced. So I'm sort of half with Neil on this. It is useful information. It could be useful information, but it's also kind of empirical information, isn't it? You should be able to feel and see that your tires are down and not be freaked out by them. And I think also is there any use for having tire pressure monitors that are exactly there to 0.1 of a bar or to 1 pound of PSI? Is there some real benefit in that on your dashboard?
Yes.
Tricky. Go on.
I quite like them. And yet, I do think it's part of the general modern lazification of modern life and our relationship with the automobile, like checking the oil,
Oh,
stuff like that. We don't check the oil because there's a little tire pressure monitor equivalent of the oil level, or even on your app. If you've got certain cars on the app, you can flick through to the app, press the details of the car, and it'll give you a little sort of bar graph of how much oil you've got in your car.
Oh, I'd like that.
Tire pressure monitors are part of that lazification. That aside, I actually quite like them. Oddly, some cars go through a phase, juvenile, delinquent, midlife or otherwise, where they're petulant and awkward and difficult, where whatever you do, they'll say, "Oh, your pressures are too low." You think, "Fuck off." They're not. Excuse me. I had it with one of my cars quite recently of a Stuttgart origin that was convinced the tire pressures are low. So I thought, "Fuck it, I'm actually going to get a tire pressure gauge, a proper one."
Yeah.
So I checked all the tire pressures, checked the manual, thought it's definitely within all the parameters. Turned it on, drove around a bit, turned off, drove around, and it still said. At that point, I was with Neil.
did the car then go, "Du hast ein potty mouth"?
Yes.
Good. Did anyone else suspect that Chris Cooper had something of the Basil Fawlty about him?
Why would that be anything other than total certainty?
It would be, yeah.
I'm the most impatient man in the world.
Oh, dear.
The reason why I asked this is I took Chris and I went to Nürburgring last week, and I blagged the old 911 GT3 RS press car, as one does. Thank you very much. Best track car ever made. Love it. Gave loads of people passenger rides in it. It's great. But when you get there, and the Cup 2s are at 2.6, 2.8 bar, which is totally inappropriate. That's at a cold temperature. You have to bleed a load of them out. And I love the fact that you can just go to tire pressure monitor, and then I get the corner of a tube of toothpaste, which really freaks people out. Because there's that bloke that should know all about this stuff. He's bending down with his arse hanging out, and he's bleeding air out, not using a pressure gauge, but using the corner of a Colgate tube. And he's got his son shouting the numbers out as they come down. I love it. It's so good. And we roll them back to 2 bar, bring them back up again. And at the temperature, they're about 2.1. And I can monitor them all the way around. So for track use, if you have a car that is on the circuit, I think they're absolutely brilliant. So I've got to take a tire pressure gauge and cut them out. And it fits with the Porsche thing. I think on the road, I totally agree with Neil. If you could set a parameter whereby the warning was, "Oi, watch out, really watch out," then we'd listen to it. The problem is that it isn't. And then you're just in the realms of how healthy your sensors, and we all know the answer to that, don't we?
Yeah. It's crying wolf. It's crying wolf. And then you ignore it.
I'm the opposite of you lot. I don't think most of my cars have a tire pressure sensor warning up, and I just leave it there. I don't care.
See, I couldn't do that. I'd have to do something about it, one way or the other.
Yeah.
No, it's just there.
Untidy. It's a little grain in you.
As Manish said, if it's bad, you'll feel it. Or the only difficulty of the hyper low profile modern high performance tire is that they can depressurize an awful lot before visually they look an awful lot different.
Yeah.
So you can't use the old eyeballs quite as well.
No.
But I do love it. I can remember when we were doing the high speed drives of the Bugatti Chiron. That has a tire pressure monitoring system that runs to 2 decimal points because they need that level of accuracy. And I can remember I was just sort of, well, they're quite helpful, aren't they? And the engineer said, no, they are critical in this car. Above 205, 210 miles an hour, whatever it is, you really look at those. And if one of those comes down by 0.02 of a bar, you stop and you're in here. Otherwise, it could be catastrophic.
Yeah.
And I said, but when I drove a Chiron at 236 miles an hour on the A5 near Karlsruhe one night, we didn't have those. And he went, yeah, and walked off looking a bit sheepish.
Had to lie down.
Yeah. So actually, I love the tech, but I like them on the car. I just wish they were better. That's all. I love the idea of it. But you're right. There's the light that comes on. Well, what does that mean? Where am I?
It's red. All those numbers that come up minus 0.3, and it goes from orange to red. You think, well, that's bad. I'm a bad person. I failed my car.
Does that feel like, is that a telling off?
It's a telling off.
To be honest, because I hate it so much, I just pump them up much too high.
You don't get told off for that.
Because if you do it right on, I don't know, 32 or whatever, and it goes off at bloody 31 or 30, doesn't it? So just make it 36, and then you've got plenty of leeway, haven't you?
Yeah. And how does the car distinguish between light load tyre settings and heavy load? How does it know? It doesn't know.
You set it.
Well, that's a bit I found. That's a bit I find frustrating. I've tried that anyway. So,
yes,
work in progress.
This is before we get on the subject of the 959 tyre pressure monitoring system, which was the first one ever fitted to a road car. That is extraordinary because it has a chiming sort of siren that comes out of the dashboard. That extra bit of centre console the 959 has that's beautifully carpeted either side.
Yes.
Where the diff logos are, there's a siren behind with a little speaker outlet. And if the tyre pressure monitors are below what they should be, it's a little bit Third Reich, the noise. It's not a great noise. And you're there and you go, whoa, what have I done wrong? And the lights come up on the dashboard. You're like, Jesus Christ.
Are your papers?
They've calmed it down a bit, yeah. Right, moving on for some positivity. What's the shittest engine and gearbox in a car? I'm going straight to manage.
Well, I have an experiential answer and I have a theoretical answer. My experiential answer is actually, you may not agree with this, and it got a very good write-up, but I certainly drove it. It was a car that belonged to the mother of a good friend, and it was an MG Metro Turbo back in the 80s. I remember reading, what would it have been then? Maybe Motorsport or something. It was a great review about this before she bought the car. I said, it drove very well and it pulled off very well. It was a stylish hot hatch in those days, and I remember that it would never start. I remember that was the first thing. This was a car that would only start with the choke full out all the time. And it was yin, 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 yin. Then it would finally start. The thing would go.
Sorry to interrupt. You may have to describe for the younger listeners and viewers what a choke is.
Okay.
Also, can I congratulate you on your non-starting A-series sounding impression? Because it was bang on. Absolutely how they used to sound.
Yeah.
So a choke was effectively, looked like a cigar lighter built into your dashboard. You'd pull it out and it would effectively flood your engine with lovely nutrients of fuel.
Oh, I love a choke.
It would just make the engine mix just a little richer. And the whole idea that the thing would spark up. And this thing only ever ignited. And I'm not talking about cold days. Just the thing needed at least half a choke, sometimes all the choke. And then eventually when it would go, trying to change gear in this car before you'd done about 100 miles. It was just a horrible gearbox. Once the car was warmed up, it really wasn't too bad. And anyway, I got on with it sort of not desperately well. And it had, it was a Garrett turbo. Was it Garrett? It was a turbocharger. I can't remember what.
It's a very good turbocharger.
Sorry?
Very good turbocharger.
Oh, no, yes. What were they at the time? I Garrett. Garrett was in Triple K. I remember they were the three turbochargers.
It wouldn't have been a Kugel Schleissler kicking car thing, no.
But I just remember it being completely unsatisfying, not really that powerful. Nice trim, huge MG badges everywhere. But here was the real gift horse. What they didn't tell her when she bought it was, if you go and buy yourself an MG Turbo Metro, make sure you've got a decent commute twice a day, because the thing just needs to be on a motorway and go up and down. Because if it's not on a motorway, if you use it for urban commuting, which is what she did, sort of 10 miles one way, 4 miles back, mostly in town, the thing needed servicing about every 3 months. It would just literally coke up.
Yeah.
And so that absolutely experientially wins for me. Just the worst engine gearbox combination of my teenage life.
The MG Metro Turbo. Neil Clifford, this must be tough for you. You've driven a lot of shitters.
I I own a lot.
Owned, I said driven, not owned. Don't
No,
pin that on me.
I've owned my fair share of shitters. Thank you very much. It's a car that I still like, actually, and it's the obvious one. It's the Land Rover Defender, the old one, the TD5. It is the shit. It's just, it's shit but lovely, as we know. It's cool but crap. It's every time you get in one of those cars and you think, oh, doesn't it look wonderful? It's so, and then you drive it, you go, oh my God, this really is quite terrible. I do love it.
Do you know that TD5 engine?
Yeah. It's pretty shit. Rattly.
Better than the Puma that followed.
The Puma that came after, which was in the last Heritage.
Yeah, transit engine.
Yeah. I think they're both a bit crap, aren't they, really? I mean, it's a car that I do love, although I don't own a diesel Defender at the minute. I've got a 50th, and I prefer that because it's petrol and V8 and automatic. Yeah. That manual gearbox, you just got to pretend you're a farmer.
You have to do that. I've heard that before.
I think if you're you're a real farmer, which is good, but if you're not a real farmer, just pretend you're Windy Miller.
Yeah.
Was he a farmer or he made bread, didn't he, Windy Miller?
He was a miller.
He's a miller, obviously.
He was in the agricultural supply chain somewhere, so that's cool.
He was, yeah. There is a joy to that car, but it isn't really. It's in the cocktail of all the things added together. But every single individual bit is shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Chris Cooper, worst engine and gearbox in a car.
I kind of done this wrong because when I read it, shittiest engine / gearbox.
Oh, you thought it was combination.
My brain said it was either or.
Well, you can choose either or.
Done that wrong.
Go both.
So, but because it forced me to think about this, and actually, and now because I hadn't thought about the Puma engine in the last years of, well, actually, the last 10 years, really.
That was. I think the technical term in testing circles was wank.
Yeah, it was massively wank.
Yeah.
It sounded really thin. It had no power, very easy to stall. The TD5, because it's a 5-cylinder engine, has got a bit of character, bit more noise. When you take the exhaust gas recirculation off it, it sounded a bit better. But I think, and there aren't many shit engines these days. You could go back to the 70s and 80s and find lots of shit engines. V6 engines in Fords of the 70s and 80s were, even 80s into 90s, were a bit shit. Worse, though, because it should have been so much better, and the hype and the promise and the expectation was extraordinary.
What car are we talking about?
Gearbox was the semi-automatic gearbox in the Aston Martin Vanquish of 2000, whatever. How, at the time, so this would have been late 90s, the consulting firm I was leading at the time, we did a little bit of work with Aston Martin when they first moved to to Bloxham. And the CEO, who had come from Ford, a very impressive chap by the name of Bob Dover, sounded like he was a porn star, but actually I think he was an authentic
That's Ben Dover, I think.
Is it? But they're related. I think Bob would have been Ben's older brother. He'd been around the block more than once. Had Robert.
I've got my cards here, man. I'm just going to keep clipping.
Robert Over. Actually, we should have Robert Over. That would be fun. Anyway, so they had this idea. Their vision for Aston Martin was, we want to be the British Ferrari. They said that. They came to our offices and said, I said, what are you trying to be? They said, we're the British Ferrari. And I remember thinking, that's ambitious. And the tagline was sports priority. I thought, fucking hell, they've got better consultants than I would be. I thought it was a brilliant time. And they had this, we've got to have a flappy paddle. This would have been 97, 98. So the 355 flapper would have been around. It was hopeless. I remember driving the Vanquish for the first time. The seat was too high and the gearbox was truly horrific. Much worse than the BMW SMG gearbox. Much worse than the Ferrari one. It was truly horrific. They had literally spent £2.50 on it. And I think in its time and its period, and given the qualities of the rest of the car, seat height aside, which was just a killer for me, I think that is the shittiest gearbox I've ever come across. Not in a bend over way. In a car.
Poor Bendover's gearbox.
Well,
Robert, I'm really sorry. You're a top. I may have passed away.
leave it there. Leave it there. You've done the damage.
Yeah.
I asked this because I'd just been in a vehicle that I think was one of the most hateful things I've been in a long, long time. We talk about there being no bad engines. There are actually some quite rough engine, particularly engine gearbox combinations. This was a Japanese car.
Ooh.
Japanese have perpetuated one particular virus in the automotive planet that needs to be stamped out, and that is the CVT transmission.
Oh, God, how did we forget that?
They still make the fucking things.
They're
and I was
useless.
I was in
They're
one a couple of
horrible.
days ago. Hire car. It was one of those Yaris's that sits. The Yaris used to be sort of shin high. Now it's higher than a giraffe, and it's sort of pumped up thing, a city Yaris-y, off-roady SUV thing, and it had a 3-cylinder engine, which wasn't sweet, and it was mated. I used to use that word in my autocar road
Oh,
test.
yes. I remember reading that. Mated.
Mated like that to a good old CVT. So you reach the point at which the engine achieves maximum irritation to you in the cabin, noise, moves like a cow, and then it just fucking stays there. It's just like someone holding one note down on a synthesizer for 2 hours, and I just wanted to throw the thing in a hedge. It was absolutely hateful, really bad. I think they want £30-something thousand for that shit box.
The CVT is a rare example of marketing having a better answer than engineering.
I don't really. Where did it start? Where did it start? That thing, was it Honda?
It was DAF had one.
Oh, the DAF, Christ!
Yeah, and then Volvo bought DAF, and then the Volvo 340 got to see. When I first started working, one of my colleagues had a Volvo 340 CVT.
Wasn't it like on a belt?
It was 2 cones. It was a sort of cones that did that.
Yeah.
And depending on the torque sensors in it.
Yeah.
So those things would go like that. For those listening in black and white, we're making only mildly amusing moving gestures with our fingers and hands. They're not very amusing.
Was that 70s DAF, the little 2-door job.
DAF 55,
Yeah.
But that doesn't win. Because
no.
There's a bigger crime out there, and I think at the time I felt that journalists were very harsh about a car called the Ford Escort Mark V. So this was the slightly more rounded car that came in the early 90s and lasted till the Focus arrived. Actually, it was facelifted with the sort of corporate
sort of oval
grill.
Gopping grill.
The first generation car, which actually didn't look too bad initially, it just got shat on. The Car Magazine just eviscerated it on the cover and in some group test. And Autocar Magazine was so negative about the car that Ford cancelled their advertising. It was that bad. And I remember thinking, well, it can't be that bad. It's got good interior. I quite like the sporty seats. It's got a rev counter. You could get rear. Could you get rear headrest? I'm not sure you could, but the estate looked quite funky. Can't be that bad. And then a few years later in life, I somehow came to be driving one, and it had, I think, a 1.6 litre CVH engine in it, or 1.4 or something like that. It's the worst car I've ever driven. I think it was. The engine was just horrific. It vibrated. It produced next to no power at all. The gearbox was foul. As a powertrain, I just feel sorry for anyone that had to work on it, because how could you be proud of that? How could you sign that car off and go, yes, they're bound to want a Golf, not want this instead of a Golf. I mean, we've got the Peugeot 309 licked with this thing. It was just shit.
Was that mid-80s? Was that in line with the Orion?
No, the Onion had gone. This came as a saloon as well. It's just called the Escort Saloon by then.
It was post-Orion.
Post-Orion. It's the car that came in about 1991.
So the Orion was the Mark IV.
Yes, with
Yeah.
this was an enormous marketing budget. This was when both Ford and GM were actually spending more money marketing cars than developing them,
Yeah.
which I'm told in business terms was a big tipping point for these car companies. So you had incredible luxurious car advertorials in the car magazines. I think there was a sort of 20-page advertorial in the car magazines to tell you how much better their car was than the rivals. But honestly, that is just a shitbox. Terrible.
Car were not shy about, the
No.
whole. I don't know what the lemon. You remember the lemon?
Lemon. An American
Well, there were
expression.
two
Yeah.
lemons. There was the American lemon, and there was the Golf VR6.
The gold. Yeah.
They had ran a long-term VR6, which just had terrible build quality issues, and they properly shit-canned that. But actually, Autocar, fair play to them, were harsher on the Escort Mark V than anyone. I mean, they just said
They're really upset about it. Yeah.
I think they gave it 1 star or something. They absolutely when stars mattered. I mean, that face Manish just did is you read it, you went, oh my god,
Yeah.
Yeah. You've killed it commercially. It's dead then.
yeah, it was really really bad. So let me just get my thingy up here so we can just check. Yeah, I'm sure we've got others. Please write suggestions of things that you think are absolutely terrible, because I do think there are others that really are worthy of a kick.
Just having a very quick read around this question, and one car that came up was the DeLorean that I'd completely forgotten had that V6 weird engine. You remember the PRV, the Peugeot Renault Volvo?
Yeah, but wasn't that the Duvran V6?
The Duvran V6, exactly.
But there were applications where that engine was actually quite nice.
No, but in a, can you imagine you buy yourself a DeLorean instead of a Ferrari, and you have 130 horsepower at your disposal?
On a good day.
That would be very annoying.
That was a shit engine.
It sound all right. The gearbox in those are absolutely woeful. Some of the Lotus Esprits I drove in my early days had gearboxes I could not understand because they used to move around. They were in, third was in a different position depending on where you
left it.
Yeah, you're like, well, that was. I'm sure that was there last time. I like this one. This won't last long, but it gives us a chance to reminisce, settle back, celebrate our respective ages. Why Top Marques was just the best.
Oh.
Neil Clifford leaned back on the chaise longue.
Well, it was
some Oasis and tell us why it was great.
It's great because even now you can't take your iPad to the bog.
No.
So it's reduced male toilet time by 90%. The fact that Top Marques is no longer in print.
Yeah.
It was mid 90s was peak.
Mid-late 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. And it had all of the dealers. It was pre-internet, obviously, wasn't it? So you had no idea what cars were for sale until I think was it bi-weekly? It wasn't weekly. It was every
weekly.
2 weeks.
Or was it 2 weekly? I was asking myself a question earlier.
The Auto Trader came out weekly.
This was bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly, or it might have even been monthly.
No, it was more than that.
It was bi-weekly, I'm sure. And it was, that was at a time when you saw these new editions. You don't really get it now, even with, I'm loyal to car magazines, but you haven't got that thrill of the latest when there's a new edition out. It was so exciting walking into WH Smith's at Euston, or you're at Terminal 1. Do you remember Terminal 1 Heathrow?
Oh, now we're down memory lane.
Terminal 1 Heathrow, WH Smith's, new edition of Top Marque. You didn't give a fuck if you were at the back of the plane. That was it was just magical, wasn't it? And all the dealers were in there. We won't name and shame, but all the ones that are still around, quite a lot that are not still around, or they renamed themselves and they're still around.
Can you remember how much they cost? How much did it cost back then?
It was a quid or something, wasn't it?
It was something like that.
It was
wasn't
a quid.
I think it's a bit more.
It was a couple of quid. Actually, because it was so successful, they were always a bit. Every 6 months the price went up, didn't it? But it didn't matter if it was a tenner, you would have bought it because it was your only ability to see every cool car in the United Kingdom for sale, all in one book that sat beautifully next to the bog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it was the only acceptable magazine that I think girlfriends or that became wives accepted in the toilet. Because it was just fabulous, wasn't it? And you look back on them now. I did a little Google just to remind myself what it looked like. You just knew every single price of every single car, didn't you? It was the male car obsessives encyclopedia. I adored it.
I used to get my friends, people I used to live with, we used to read the description and guess the price. We were stupid. What a game that was.
Yeah.
It went on for hours. I used to love it. There was some stuff that I was absolutely unstoppable on. Unstoppable. Peugeots, VWs, that kind of tap. No, you weren't. I was within fiver.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Failing my degree at a level that had been not seen at Oxford Poly before, but I could tell you that a 306 XSI with alloy wheels in a 3-door in blue was probably 11,995.
Yeah.
I was
I'm
right.
still quite good at that now. 309 Goodwood 3-door.
Good green.
Power steering and sunroof.
Leather bolsters.
Yes.
So I think Neil's hit on one of the things that I'd written down, which I think is really, really important to it, which has never existed before or since.
Yeah.
It's the fact that it came out on a certain day of the week.
Which day was it? Was it Thursday?
It was the end of a week or Thursday or Friday, Saturday.
I thought it was Thursday or Friday. I can't remember. Yeah.
And
I'm going to write this
the
now.
excitement of driving out somewhere to the local corner shop or newsagent in the village or wherever it was to know the latest edition of Top Marques is on the shelf. The excitement of knowing that a lot of the content would look like the last one, but there'd be some new stuff. Where's the new stuff in it? I'm going to have to read through the whole thing. And it was an Auto Trader spin-off. It was part of Auto Trader. It was before Piston Heads. I don't remember really using... I'm trying to think when I started using the Tinternet to look at cars for sale. It was I probably used to look at the Sytner Group website because BMWs were kind of my aspiration at that point, early 2000s.
It was early 2000s. 2001, 2, 3. That's where it started, wasn't it?
Yeah. And just that excitement of, I'm going to go and buy the new edition of Top Marques, sit on the bog, or just take it on a plane or whatever. I don't think that... quite glossy.
Fat.
The photography was good. The pages were glossy. Some of them stuck together after a while, but, we won't go back to bend over, or indeed his older brother, Robert. It was, I don't think that concentrated hit of excitement, I don't think has been replicated by anything that's followed. The problem with the internet is it's instant gratification, instant access, and just sort of, you get addicted just flicking through it. Top Marques wasn't like that. It was different. We had to wait for it. You had to earn it. You had to wait the time, had to earn the money. Those were golden days. Yeah. So the answer to the question, Top Marques was just the best.
Manage.
It's funny because you are talking about genuine delayed gratification and working hard for a result, because that's the real problem with something like a Piston Heads, isn't it? You can log on the search function. In fact, just Google, just the search function. You put in a mark, you put in a year, you put in engine size, and there you go. You go and find it. With something like a Top Marque, you had to browse. You literally had to go through it. And the amount of passive knowledge you could build up over a few months of reading that, unconsciously, you're doing what Chris was doing, which you're taking in all this data. But I have to say, there was something else that used to just tickle me, not maybe quite as much, but do you remember the Sunday Times always had the best classified?
Yes, they did.
And that was the other thing. Sunday mornings, just look, especially when you look through the kind of Ferraris or the absolutely unimaginable cars, and realizing they were out there. You could see how many miles they'd done and what they would cost. So that was the kind of like the mini hit on a Sunday from Top Marques.
Thursday. There used to be that driving section, didn't there?
The driving section was fantastic.
I wanted to be that guy, the guy that had the 911 phone number. Sell your Porsche now. Call me on 0775 993 964. Do you remember?
I knew that bloke. Yeah,
I wanted to be that guy. I'm like, you bastard! You've got such a
Peter
cool
Smith?
telephone number.
I used to love it when someone would go, you'd see an advert in the Sunday Times and it would be bigger font than everyone else's. They'd said, right, you can have the biggest advert, and it would be for, it would say something like NSX, 7,000 miles, unrepeatable, X and Senna or something. And then below it, in really tiny font, would be 250 GTO, 7 million or nearest offer or something. It'd be something massive, but in the modest font, because Lord, whoever was selling it wasn't going to be ripped off and pay the extra 40 quid for the big advert.
Yeah.
It was a bit small.
What Neil said just reminded me, we got to know the names of the buyers, the dealers.
Yes.
Because they had their mobile
I think
numbers.
it was Brighton, wasn't it? It was the Brighton Porsche dealership.
Riverdale.
Riverdale. And their phone number was literally like 993 or something. And I thought, that's just the best job in the world having that.
Matthew Beard had 959 in his for ages, didn't he?
Yeah.
Matthew Beard, when he was at Porsche.
Did. Yeah.
He gets more mentions than Senna on this podcast. I should get a bell for him.
I mean, the Tom Hartley ads were in Sunday Times. You've got to admire the dark guy. He was right on it, wasn't he?
He was.
He had all the new stuff before anyone else.
But there was an awful. I'm not saying it was him. There was an awful lot of subterfuge. You say a list of cars, you'd be thinking they just made that up. We did that, or we did an Autocar once to try and call them out. But of course, the lawyer said you can't. But we just phoned him and said, "Can I just? I'm phoning about the car for sale. Which one? Well, the whatever. Oh, we haven't got one of those. But there's an advert for it though. Oh no. Actually, no, we have got one of them. Yeah. There's a load of that going on. But Top Marques was a Bible. It was the first point at which I realised that actually classified was my editorial in many ways. If you write about cars, you probably don't read about cars. But if you want to consume car media, as was then, the classifieds are where you go. And so I'd have Auto Trader, I'd have Top Marques always, even though they overlap massively. And it was always fascinating seeing the Top Marques advert version of the Autocar advert, or the Auto Trader advert. So you'd seen the black and white shitty one with a bit less info. Then you see the colour picture of the same car with a bit more intel. Always love seeing that.
Yeah.
But I suppose it was the melting point between trade and customer. Because actually, Brass's guide was trade. There was the trade and the customer were kept much more separate then. But the one thing that everyone that was really into that space, either to make money or recreationally, Top Marques was the melting pot. That's where you came together. You both read it. The trade read it and the customer read it.
Yeah.
And I, in many ways, I think the Auto Trader Group did a good job, but I think they missed Auto Trade. Top Marques should have become Turbo Evo with adverts. It could have been a behemoth. I never understood why it wasn't, because they could have launched an editorial product on the back of it. Can you imagine if it would have been perfect?
Still not late for us to give it a try.
No.
Yes.
No.
And also, there was loads of registration numbers, wasn't there? There was a whole there was a whole section on number plates. You know, when they were affordable, when you could mess about with not a lot of money and number plates then.
Yeah.
And the Sunday Times too. They had a ton, didn't they? Number plates.
They did. And did you ever? I never ever could find my initials CRC. Been looking for all my life, 25 years.
Is that because it's not? You can't do it, or?
I don't know. I never found it. Never found it.
Oh, we'll find it for you.
Somebody will.
We'll find it.
But it was number plates were a big deal, weren't they?
They were. It's very cheap to put a lot of them in the advert.
And Auto Trader, Autocar used to have a lot of number plates in the back.
The Autocar sales numbers for what was called the bog roll at the back were fantastic for a long time. They capitulated soon after I arrived. No connection, I hope. But that Top Marques was a bit of a Bible. And I in my shed where there's still some old I've still got a few car magazines. I've got some Top Marques still.
Oh,
still got a few.
Can you bring them in? When we have like an inset day or a mufti day at school, can you bring those in? We can all look at them together.
Some of the dealers, if you go back and look at them, maybe we'll find some screen grabs for you now. They took real pride in their Top Marques presentation. It was a way of demonstrating they were more serious than the opposition.
Straight 8. They had a whole
Straight eight.
straight eight. There was a
William
whole.
Loughran. William Loughran.
Oh, he's still a player. He only has about one car a year for sale, but it's really a good
Yeah.
one. The whole page of straight eight.
The new players came in top 555. Where do they come from? Have
Yeah.
they arrived in the top marks?
They were.
Howard Wise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Howard
Oh,
Wise.
fantastic. I loved it, all of it. Bring
Yeah.
it back. Fuck the internet. It's not
Yeah.
going to go far.
But don't
But,
go
okay,
as far back as
Finley, this T-shirt. Fuck the internet. Bring back top marks.
Yeah.
Right? That's our next T-shirt.
Yeah.
So, moving on to a different subject. There's now a child with Verstappen PK Racing DNA. Congratulations, Max, on becoming your father.
Yep.
What DNA combo would you ideally choose? That's obviously with reference to racing driving, not just aesthetics or whatever you want, being a murderer, racing driving. Let's start with Manish, who's probably thought about this a bit.
I thought about this a little bit. So there are three ways you can do this. We can go the Verstappen PK way with some eugenics. Go and find two human beings that you would like to mate that exist, and
like a
they will
gearbox and an engine.
Well, something like that. Exactly. That will produce the progeny you want. There is cloning. Could we get hold of a little bit of a racing driver and clone them? But I think the best version is non-homologous DNA recombination. That is the way we go. So splice a gene that you think represents the best of a particular racing driver and splice another one. So that way, you don't need a male and a female. And if you can get hold of some old DNA material, you can create your perfect driver.
Yeah.
Harris.
Can I stop? Sorry. What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm saying that if we can get hold of some Senna genes and we can get hold of some Jim Clark genes, I can glue them together in my little Frankenstein laboratory to produce Ayrton Clark.
Yeah.
That is my ultimate baby.
They
Clockwork
don't actually have to
precision
be fornicated. You can actually do it in the
in
test
a
tube.
lab. In a lab.
Bend over
Do it
to
in
it.
a lab.
Yeah.
And he would
Brother
just
Robert.
be such a cool driver, such a cool driver. He'd have Ayrton's aggression, have that passion, but he'd have that whole Borders calmness, and on his weekends he'd just be a sheep farmer. And you'd see that smoothness, but you'd also see that fieriness. He'd be a little bit Brazilian, a little bit Scottish. My perfect driver. So a bit of homologous DNA recombination to give us Ayrton Clark or Jimmy Senna. You can call
Reason
him.
that he came out wrong. Right, let's move on to Neil with the hat, please.
I'm not doing racing drivers because you guys are really good at racing drivers. So I thought I would splice some other DNA if you can hear me out.
You can.
Well, I like the idea, which of course I'm pleased you gave me the idea, Manish, of splicing DNA as opposed to my strategy of merging two men. I think the splicing DNA is much more professional. I'm going to create the perfect leader for Jaguar because I want Jaguar post this amazing success that's obviously going to happen because we must stay positive. But maybe after that, you go and get some DNA out of the cemetery of Malcolm Sayer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who sort of aerodynamically did the
Yeah.
E-type, but probably William Haynes did all the work, or William Lyons did all the work, or some William bloke did all the work. But then you're going to merge them with Ian Cullum. You're going to get Ian Cullum because we should recognise Ian Cullum because he did an amazing job of modern Jaguar.
He did.
But then what you're going to do, you're going to get one more splice of an engineer, of a businessman.
Yeah.
And you're going to go and get Ferdinand Piech. He's the number one dude of just success when it comes to car strategies. And you're going to just have a wonderful strategy for Jaguar. And that's what I would like. Obviously, we're going to be successful with the current one because we mustn't be negative. But just in case there needs to be a requirement for an even more successful Jaguar after that, let's do that and get all the best Jaguar people and mix them with Ferdinand Piech. And then fingers crossed, and we can buy Jaguars again.
I think That's a very good one. I think what you do, because Ferdinand PX DNA helix thing would just be longer than everybody else's because he's so brilliant.
And he had about 47 children.
Yeah, you'd attach bits of other bits, like Blue Peter style.
Yes.
I think we've cracked
also
civilization.
If you'd done that in the 1930s, we probably wouldn't have had the Second World War.
No.
Oof.
But I think I do get the racing driver thing, but we'd also, if this was possible, if AI could do this and you could create amazing people just with doing a bit of splicing, you could deal with a lot of things, and then
it's going to happen, isn't it? We're just foreshadowing the future here. It's going to happen, right? So, and I didn't actually say racing driver in my thing.
You didn't.
I didn't know. So
that's why I didn't do it.
No, well, read the question. RTQ. I failed many exams because of that. Chris Cooper.
So, without knowing that it was a thing, I've done exactly what Manish has done or described. But I thought, wouldn't it be fun to create the perfectly dominant Scottish racing driver? So, my ingredients to go into the melting pot of whatever it is that would be in the Bend Over film circa 1987. I think you'd have a bit of Jim Clark's goo to give you the speed.
How many beers have you had?
I've only had a cup of tea from my new mug, which you didn't notice earlier.
No, it's a lovely mug, but you've just used the word goo in relation to Jim Clark.
It's just...
God's sake, man.
10:30 at night. It's past the watershed.
It is.
Jim Clark for speed. Jackie Stewart for the just amazing racing brain.
Yeah.
In the modern day, I think you need a little bit of punchiness as well. So I think you'd have a bit of John Cleland, the touring car driver, who was as pugnacious and punchy and was just a proper, everyone could get behind him as you could do. I'd also think you need a bit of modern media savvy. And I've got two for that. And I've got David Coulthard, I think, because somewhere you're going to need that chin, aren't you?
Yeah.
So DC would be in there. I think for almost one of the most complete modern Scottish racing drivers, Dario.
Oh, he's such a lovely man.
Good friend.
Hang on. Also, hair.
Hair. I was just going to get to that. The hair of Dario. Carlos Sainz, watching this man coming down, his hair would literally lie long and dank and limp. And then you can never have too much Scottish pugnaciousness. There'd be a little bit of the actor Brian Cox in there telling everyone to fuck off when things went right. So that would be my perfect DNA'd Scottish racing driver.
I want to know who made that cup of tea for you and why they're running around outside laughing, going, I just stuffed a load of vodka in it.
Can I just tell you a really quick Brian Cox story? A friend of mine was on, he's very, very notorious for not wanting a mobile phone anywhere near any set he's working on. And he was totally focused on being a particular character in a particular film. And he had to work on a very, very long, expressive monologue as the camera just comes in closer and closer and closer. And he's there and he's working away and he's doing this line. He's giving you the cock's eyes and a mobile phone goes off. And he goes, "What cunt? Turn this mobile phone on." Like that just completely blows the take. And then he goes, "Oh, it was me." And it was sitting on his own.
Hoots.
I just love that story. Brian Cox.
Right. I appreciate your attempts here. A lot of men have been guided into other men to produce these people. And now, I'm not against such things necessarily, but my basic understanding of biology means we're unlikely to procreate. And that Manish has specified that he's gone down the sort of route where he's being clever about it. You two other goons have not respected that biology matters here. Well, no, I'm not going down that route, but we need bits to do things with bits. Otherwise, we're not going to have kids. So I'm going for, I've got to have a woman. I've got to have a brilliant woman. Michelle Mouton is she. But Michelle, you've got to breathe from Michelle because she's the greatest. Her DNA is the greatest, isn't it? It's greatest.
Yeah.
So, And I can't think of anything funnier than the odd couple that we used to see wearing their Audi Sport overalls in 84? Yeah, 84. Wall to Rawl.
I knew you were going to say.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the child of Rawl and Mouton, what that would be like?
Yeah.
Wild, sassy, spastically fast. I mean, it would just be unbeatable.
Do you think?
Do you
think there might not have been, in the Côte d'Ivoire or the plains of Africa, a little bit of roll mouton jiggy, and this racing person is already out there?
I would bet very big money on that. I would bet very big money on
I'd bet very big money on the fact that Walter would not do that. He's not that sort of man.
Okay.
But I do think those two. God, if you could, that would be a racehorse I'd bet on.
Amazing.
Before we move on,
sorry, I've got the quote. Here it is. It's Volterol stated he wouldn't accept losing to Michel Mouton on the World Rally Championship title, not because he doubted her capabilities, but because she was a woman.
I'm not sure he ever said that.
No.
He did say that. It's in the newspapers, and it's in the Scottish Herald because we used it in our movie Heroes.
I'm going to ask him that myself.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
do.
So before we move on to the last subject, which is short, because hopefully all of us will just go, it's shit.
Yeah.
I want to spring this on our crowd, because about 3 hours ago, a statement was released by Alpine Formula One team. And Manish, can you just remind us what the statement was? And we'll have just 5 minutes churning over this one, because it is fascinating as this news breaks.
I don't have the quote here, but they've lost Ollie. Oh, what's his surname?
Oliver Oakes.
Ollie Oakes. Yes, he's out. He's out. I think he arrived in October 23. We're 6 races into this season, and he's resigned. And Mr. Cooper and I have been trading texts about why, and we don't have a clue.
Well, we have theories.
What was his job?
Theories.
He was the team principal.
Alpine Formula
Team
One
principal. Guys, young, brilliant, blah, 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 and he's gone.
Wow.
So the speculation and the rumour had been about, because there'd been debate over whether Jack Doohan, the son of the super-duper bike racer Mick Doohan, was going to be given the flick for Colapinto, the Argentine driver who's the executive advisor to Alpine, that somehow there'd been a disagreement over that. I don't know. The people I would talk to find out a little bit more have been studiously and interestingly totally silent. So I don't think Ollie Oakes is a very smart, savvy, very, very impressive operator. He built his team high-tech pretty much from scratch very quickly. Very, very impressive team. He's sort of on the trajectory that Christian Horner was on, arguably slightly more impressive at the point when Christian went to Red Bull all those years ago. My hunch would be, if we had to bet, I don't think that Jack Doohan, bless him, lovely chap though he is and very capable driver that he is, I don't think that in itself is a hill on which Ollie Oakes would choose to perish. I think something else is going on.
Flav is the manager of Doohan.
He is. That's a normal course of events in F1 for team principals to manage.
Flav's not Doohan's manager.
Apparently he is.
I was told he was.
Apparently he is.
Really?
Yeah, but
the season started.
Yeah, but that's normal. They're all the team principals are managers of their own drivers and other people's drivers. Flav has always had at least 30 drivers.
I don't think it's Manish is checking it. Manish, is Flav Doohan's manager?
What's it? I'm just having a look, and it says, how is Jack Doohan still managed by Flavio? It says Jack, though. So I don't.
Yeah,
Jack Doohan is managed by Flavio Doohan.
He is.
How?
I think he is, yeah.
Amazing.
So
Okay.
I don't think that's why Ollie Oakes has resigned. My gut tells me it's something else going on.
It's big news. This sort of stuff doesn't tend to happen like this.
No.
At this point in the season, it's unusual. So let's hope everyone's all right, and we'll follow the news closely. But when I read that, I thought I wasn't expecting that.
Maybe he's got another job. Maybe there's a better job available.
I wondered
Maybe.
that.
And the Doohan situation, there's a lot of press around the Doohan situation now, talking about him being replaced before Imola. So
That's less of a surprise.
It is less of a surprise, but when you read that and then you see the team principal's gone, you have to assume the two must be connected in some way, don't you?
You might be persuaded by others that is the case.
Okay.
What do you mean if Flav is his manager and the guy wants to get rid of him and he said, no, you can't get rid of him, I'm getting rid of you?
I don't think they would fall out over, frankly, something like that.
Is Flav his boss? Not
No.
really.
No, Flav was the exec director. So Ollie Oakes, in theory, was the number one guy. Flav is now, they're supposed to be on parallel pathways, but no, Ollie Oakes was the guy who ran the team. That's
No,
the
but
bottom line.
he's not a vicar. He must have a boss.
Yeah, his boss is somewhere in Alpine.
Who's his
Chatillon, yeah.
in
What's somewhere in
Renault.
DF, yeah, in Renault.
How have they been doing?
Better this year. I mean, last year was an absolute disaster. This year it's supposed to be better. A lot of people gave that credit to Flavio. You know, he's come in, as Chris was saying earlier, we're here to win. This is what we're here to do. We're not here to come third. He dealt with Ocon very, very quickly. So, who knows? Slower Chris is having a little yawn there.
Yeah, I've just been a long day. Matt, I drove a Formula 2 car today. Do you know that?
Ooh.
Mega.
Was it fun?
It had it's an interesting quirk for you. We'll talk about it another time. But Formula 2 cars out of their environment are not allowed to run Formula 2 engines because you're not allowed to test with a Formula 2 engine. So what they do is they take a Formula 2 chassis and they put other engines in them. The one I drove had 700 and something horsepower.
What?
And 700 kilograms, but the engine's out of an old LMP1 prototype. It's a remarkable vehicle owned by Garage 59. They let me have a go in it this afternoon, which I just got back from Portimao. I didn't really get up it much but what a piece of kit! You're reminded, just beat the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But how they race those things wheel to wheel, and that's the second formula.
I know.
Formula One, what you saw in Miami when they approached corners 3 abreast. I mean, how there isn't just a multiple pile up every single race, I don't know. They're all superhuman.
Yeah.
Their spatial awareness. They're cat. I'm sure if you looked at their DNA under a microscope, they'd all be cats. They're all cats. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
Mason,
We'll have to talk about two overtaking maneuvers in Miami involving Verstappen and two different McLaren drivers.
You loved it. Manage was loving watching this.
Well, I felt so sorry for Lando because he's sort of damned if he is and damned if he isn't. But it does feel like Max has got his number. I mean, it's just, I felt like, which Grand Prix am I watching again?
Yeah.
Am I in some kind of TARDIS? Just going through this again and again. And then you get to see there is something that I think fundamentally Lando probably is a teeny, tiny bit faster than Oscar. But then watch the way that Oscar gets him. He's completely wise to the fact that Max will brake, then get off the brakes and brake again. And you watch him, he just corrects. It's such a fantastic overtaking maneuver. I mean, the guy, he's just very bright. He just gets it, doesn't he? He's got Max's number. He knows what he's going to do. And that McLaren was probably 7/10 of a lap faster than anything else. They were on kind of cruise control.
Yeah.
But 35 seconds up the road from Russell. That's unbelievable. And Lewis's petulance. That was some of the best radio commentary. I really thought you can have a cup of tea before you
I thought he was cool. I thought Lewis was great.
It was so entertaining. And apparently he went up to Vasseur after the race and said, calm down. He said that to his team boss.
I've doing this longer than you have.
Yeah.
It's I thought when you watched Oscar get up to the back door of Verstappen and get past him, and then you thought that was good. Oh my God, we now get another dose of it with Lando. It was just fantastic. I was watching it.
That was good. That was a good bit of the race. Yeah.
Just thought this is what we pay for. Honestly, at that point, this is the best sport. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. But when you sit in a car of a similar size, similar sort of eyeball height, you just think that on my own on a circuit, this feels too big and too powerful. How on earth do they do it with all these people around them? They honestly, even the people at the back of the grid,
they're all good.
Having a bad time. They're freaking superheroes.
They're all good.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to read out exactly what I wrote, or I might get called out on this. Okay, so I posed this because I really have a strong feelings about this one way. Matte paint good or bad?
Mm.
Neil Clifford.
I don't really love it. I struggle to be negative about things because it's I don't like being negative, but I don't really like it. What one would I say? You know, the sort of grey battleship matte G-Wagon thing. For about 15 seconds when I first saw one right at the beginning, I thought, oh, maybe that's quite cool. You know, maybe it's a bit Star Wars, it's a bit sort of space age or whatever, but it doesn't really get me going. I remember who it was. Oh, what's his name? The chef had that green matte TDF, didn't he? What's his name?
Ramsey.
Ramsey had that TDF in matte green, which again, for about 20 seconds, you think, oh, that's quite cool. You get an immediate little, oh, that's quite, and then you go, no. You go off it really quickly, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've never ordered it. I don't really love it. You think about it for 10 seconds, you go off it. You see it for 10 seconds, you go off it. It's not great for me.
This section's actually called "Try and Make Neil Clifford Say Something a Bit Negative," because he's so chirpy, because he's a bag of jumping beans, Neil Clifford.
Well, I think we have to live and let live. We have to let people. They want Matt Gray. It's cool. Just let people enjoy themselves. But for me, I wouldn't. It doesn't do anything for me.
Okay.
What about cup holders, Neil?
The thing is, when you do a long journey with your wife I did at the weekend down to Devon, a cup holder is helpful. Could you stop?
I agree.
You stop off at that, frankly, shit service station just past Bristol, and you go in that Starbucks, and I'm like, please, darling, can we just have the coffee in there? We're only going to waste 5 minutes. It's fine. Can't we just sit in the Starbucks? No. Let's get a takeaway. So you can't sit in there and have your coffee like a true person. You put it in the car, and it's useful having the cup holder.
I think so too.
But I would never do it with that. For me, it's a wife thing, the cup holder.
Yeah.
To keep them happy, and then therefore I'm happy.
Manish, how do you feel about matte paint?
I think it's bullshit. It is just the worst invention for a car ever. I know they use it in Formula One because it reduces the weight by 0.0002 grams or whatever, but it's a terrible thing. But having said that, there is just one exception to this. I found this today. It's a 2004 Ferrari Enzo that was delivered to the Sultan of Brunei. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they call that color Nero Opaco.
Yeah.
Just opaque black. Look at it.
Yeah.
It's just the Batmobile. We'll put that up. It's literally the only exception. I find G-Wagons they look a bit German and military and Second World War-y and, lots of connotations of stuff that I don't particularly like in a car. I've never seen, apart from that photo, never seen the car in real life. I've never seen a matte car on the road that did anything for me. Neil.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think when the very early G-Wagons, though, the first of the second phase of the G63, I don't know, I think I saw one in Milan or something in about 14.
Do you know that?
And I thought, oh, God, that's quite cool. But then it wears off quick.
Bit too military. Right. Too military.
You have a moment. Even I have a moment of going, "Oh, it's all right," but then very quickly, Chris Cooper, I don't think you're on.
I'm going to save myself the 10 seconds or the moment that you have, and just get straight to. I don't like it.
Yeah.
The first time I saw one was on a racing car. It was that year we started doing VLN, 2007. We shared a garage with Phoenix Racing, and they were running a DBR9, Klaus Ludwig, and that had a matte finish on the paintwork. And I thought, racing car, sort of get it. It's a bit military. It's a bit functional. I sort of got that.
Yeah.
On a road car thereafter, I thought it just looks silly. You can't clean them. You got fingerprints, so all the silly instructions you get with them. It's fake. It's fakery of. It's not a piece of military equipment. It's not camouflage. It's still a car. For me, I think it's horrible. One of the worst moments I could have in Top Marks then or Auto Trader now. You find a car you've been looking for, and you find one. You do all the color selection on all Auto Trader. I don't want black because I don't. I'll get to that last. Maybe a grey or a blue one. Oh, there's a blue S63 cab. It's not grey or white or black. There's a blue S63 cab. Oh, is this it? Is this finally it? And you go there, and it doesn't say on the description. You click on the picture. It doesn't say it's matte. You click on the picture. Oh, it's fucking matte.
Yeah,
It's probably a wrap.
Desenio, waste my time, fucking matte blue.
That's the one.
I think it's past. You don't see as many matte.
definitely
cars
dated now.
5 years ago was peak matte.
Yeah.
The glossy battleship grey now, which is the new matte, I think. Can't stand it.
I don't like the stuff. I never got it, and I unfortunately ended up one of the best cars I ever bought was matte. It was that M5 CS, and I didn't want it matte. So I asked BMW if they could do it non-matte, and they went, no, it's matte. So you either got to have a battleship grey in a normal colour, or you had to have the matte green. And I love green cars, so I bought a green car, and I thought, we'll sort this by giving it to James Walker, and he can put some PPF on it that'll be gloss, and then we'll put some gloss on top of it. I gave him the car, and I said, can you do this? And he went, probably not. I thought,
No,
oh, shit.
it doesn't fit.
And he bless him, he tried really hard, but there's no real way you can't gloss this stuff.
No.
It just is matte. What happens is it adds a little bit of depth, but it's still got this awful flatness to it. And I hated the colour of the car in the end. I love the car, but I also, this sounds terrible, I don't feel self-conscious driving around in a yellow Porsche because, a lot of people give me lots of wrist exercising signals and all sorts of stuff. I don't drive fast in town. But a yellow Porsche is probably the ultimate wanker symbol for most people, isn't it? But I don't feel self-conscious. I did in that car because I felt like people might thought I joined the club of modern high-performance matte paintwork owners, and I don't want to be in that club.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I was like, people would go, yes. No. It's not. I love the car, and I would apologise for this matte paintwork to people. Total strangers. Hi, I'm Chris. Sorry about the paint. So they go, what?
Yeah.
I didn't like it at all. So I'm against. Sorry, I think all Formula One teams should be forced to paint their cars shiny because they look proper.
Yeah.
They just look better.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our two-car garage. Which have I got the right one here? It begins. The year is 2050.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, right. The year is 2050, which is probably when Neil will be allowed to get on his plane. And you are a young British royal recently engaged. You're looking for two vintage cars from the turn of the century, more or less. But the first will need to do duties driving your new bride from Westminster Abbey to the palace and perhaps the occasional Goodwood meet. The second will need to take you and your bride throughout Europe for your road trip honeymoon. It'll need to tick all the usual road trip boxes whilst also being able to slip under the radar enough to fool the paps. Budget, aristocratic, Alec.
Alec, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Carry on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's from Alec.
Right, so let's
you,
go. Let's go straight to Manish, please.
Okay, well, I'm going to slightly bend the rule about the first car, very late turn of the century, because it's the Bentley that I've most been in love with. And by the time we get to 2050, it will have been 30 years old. But it is the Flying Spur Mulliner Bespoke, and you would have to have it like this. Does somebody how do you pronounce? Is it Brodgar?
Lift it up.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
It's two-tone.
Yeah, it's a Brodgar over light Brodgar. It's just such a beautiful car. And I can imagine even when that thing's 30 years old, it'll be beautiful. I was playing with the configurator, and I think you want the interior to be Beluga over Brunel. Just check those colors out. And this car, I think in 30 years' time, absolutely the most beautiful thing out there. The second car, I think there is only one answer, because it's got to be slightly under the radar, but it's got to be a Grand Tourer. I think you want this to be automatic. I think it will be 50 years old, but it will look like a spray ship. And you'd have to get this in deep metallic green, no shields, dark grey hide, and it would have to be.
Oh.
Manish is holding a picture up of a Ferrari 456 Modificato.
Yeah.
50 years old. It's got a boot. has 2 seats in the back. You can put the doggy in the back. Just have the best ever honeymoon. So that would be my 2-car turn of the century-ish garage.
Neil Clifford.
Right, sticking with British. It's a British royal family, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're sticking with Jaguar.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going Jaguar. It's very simple. Project 7. You need a cabriolet. You get the stickers taken off. So it's just super plain, not too flashy, big noise, roof off, aircon, CarPlay, lovely little honeymoon car. And then obviously Project 8, touring, no stickers again, 4-seater, monster of a car, last ever until the next one. Last ever cool Jaguar, 200 miles an hour, 4-door. No one knows what it is. Lovely little couple cars. That's a lovely little
That's
set.
a good choice.
Lovely little couple of cars.
Actually,
Royals.
2-car garage. That could be up there. Project 7, Project 8. You want them in matching colours, ideally.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Chris Cooper.
So, Alec, who suggested, thank you very much. I'm drawn to Alec's last line of his suggestion. Budget, aristocratic. I take aristocratic to mean...
Yeah.
I take aristocratic to mean looks good, hasn't got a penny.
Okay.
So these are going to be budget cars. So I think the Jags are really good. I've got a Jag, but it's going to be a cheaper Jag than either the Project, certainly the Project 8, probably Project 7 as well. So I think the first car would be a 1999 Jag XKR convertible.
Nice car.
Which I reckon would cost about threepence halfpenny in whatever.
$8,000.
Yeah, in 2050. I think that'd be pretty good.
Would they have an aftermarket leaper on the bonnet or not?
Growler. No, growler on the back, not a leaper on the bonnet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I think the road trip car, and by 2050, I think this will be well under the radar, even more so than a 456. It would be an original, those very, very subtly styled and painted and wheeled first of the Bentley Continental GTs.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think that would be very subtle. Great for a honeymoon road trip, assuming that any of these cars, 50 years old, are going to run.
Yes.
So I think, Alec, I think that would fit the aristocratic budget of you've got to look good, but you haven't really got any money to spend on it because there's a hole in the roof and the ha-ha has been falling over.
15 grand.
It's that.
Now.
That's the one. Yeah.
One owner.
If you smash a headlight, you can write it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're all close as ever. But what you forget is that her Madge, the real Madge, who left us a few years ago, left in her will to this royal one of her cars, and that's what's going to be the driver. Now, she loved an X308 Daimler Super V8. Now,
who would have such a car?
They're worth millions.
Have it. By this stage, this person will be knocking on for 70 years old. Small brown man that used to present Top Gear, the shit one after Clarkson,
The best.
happens to have one of those in his garage, and he gets approached. Anyhow, they've bought one, so it's been bequeathed one by the Queen. It's actually dark blue with a linen interior, which is, I've gathered, the most valuable specification
Nice.
of this vehicle. So that's what you get around in it. And they go, why that? And he goes, well, it's like a blue collar Bentley. It's below the radar. Wasn't expensive. It's small. We love it. Grandma used to have it, or maybe great grandma used to drive one. But the other car, I do believe that when someone says they want to slip under the radar, they're lying. They're lying.
Ooh.
That means they want to be on the radar. It's like when you begin sentences, to be honest. You're just a liar, aren't you? We all know it's too obvious, okay? On the radar means, hey, look at me. But hey, look at me can't be E-Type. And there's a man on my screen now that owns the car that these people call Europe in, and it's the Bentley Continental T. Of course it is. They have a Conti T,
Yeah.
and they The best thing is they'd sit a bit too upright in the front seats. They'd have their hat cases on the back seats, and they would basically smash their way around Europe, and everyone would go, "That's the British royal family. Of course it is. They're driving a fucking Bentley.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They're dudes."
Yeah.
And they'd play Elgar loudly out of hi-fi, and it would be wonderful. Everyone would love it. Right, here we go. Let's have a piece of music each. Let's start with Chris Cooper.
So I can't remember where this came up yesterday. It might have been Cameron and I were watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Rodney. And I didn't know that Red Red Wine by UB40 was an original song by Neil Diamond.
Was
And I
it?
listened to it, and it's actually really nice. So my song this week is Red Red Wine by Neil Diamond.
He's got a lovely voice.
Perfect voice.
I love Neil Diamond.
Yeah.
Neil with a hat, who's not Neil Diamond. What's your song for this week?
Okay, Radiohead, the Benz album. There's a song called Bones.
Yes.
And it's just a great driving track. Midnight, Renault 5, GT, Turbo, Raider, electric windows down. Fucking fantastic.
And a choke.
We've got to make films of all of these imaginary.
Had a choke.
Little underneath. One of the last bars with choke.
I was going to say earlier, that's the last.
Dashboard, didn't it come out of the dashboard? Wasn't it almost in the panel on the dashboard?
Underneath.
Yeah, it was built into the dashboard, but you just lifted it up like that.
Yeah.
Manish.
I'm going to go for Mozart's Requiem, and the little piece in it, it's Rex, ruler, king. Just turn that on when you get into your car and hear a massive choir shout, Rex.
Now, we're slightly guilty within this section of the podcast of maybe forgetting its origins. It was supposed to be music to drive to.
Yeah.
And actually, we just, quite often, I think, either I don't think of it as driving music, or I just think I've heard a lovely tune and I don't contextualize it enough for you. So I'm going to contextualize this piece of music before we sign off. There's one thing I like doing in a car, which is sometimes deliberately choosing pieces of music that are totally unsuitable for where I am or what I'm doing, because you can use it to your advantage. So, for example, if I'm going quite fast late at night somewhere, I'll sometimes put something on quite slow moving and calming, maybe in the ridiculous hope that it will calm me down and slow me down a bit. And I also quite find I like the juxtaposition between extreme speed and calm, beautiful music. It can be really soothing, and it helps you build rhythm. And I think it aids the experience for me. So this is what happened to me last Saturday. I was coming back from the Nürburgring, de-restricted part of the Autobahn. I had my son with me, and he'd fallen asleep. And we were trucking along at, 145 miles an hour or something, in a bright red GT3 RS, dog knob red. We really did stand out. And I put on Roberta Flack's The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face.
Very good.
And what some people don't know about me is that I was I'm adopted, and the first person I ever saw that was related to me was the boy that was sleeping next to me in this RS with a colossal hangover. And I shed a little tear as I was driving along at 145, because the first time I saw his face was the first time I saw anyone related to me. What a strange feeling. And Roberta Flack singing that, as we did an awful lot of miles an hour in that lovely red Porsche, was rather a lovely moment. I should have been listening to The Prodigy, but for some reason that felt like the right song at the right time. What a lovely moment that was. Music and cars work, don't they?
Lovely. Can't beat that.
On that note, thank you very much. Sorry we're a bit jaded and late. Neil Clifford has to get up and go and fly on a plane. I can't thank him enough for staying up and doing this for us today. Manish was wonderful as ever, and Chris Cooper, thank you for being here as well. We look forward to irritating you again next week.